I just want to wake up every day, throw a leg over my scoot, and ride.
American Roadrunner. American Roadrunner.
On-road or off-road, wrencher, rider, racer, or just a weekend warrior, this is the show for you.
You found us, my fellows. Welcome to the American Roadrunner podcast. And now, your host, Bob Marshall.
Welcome. You are back for part 4, Durango Road, episode 31. We get to finish our interview with one Mr. John Oakes, the man, the myth, the legend behind all the good stuff. And boy, I just had to remember listening to this interview again how excited him and I both were to get to sit down and talk to one another. The good thing is you get all the inside scoops and stories. The other thing is sometimes we kind of talk over each other because we get so excited about what we're talking about. But regardless, figuring out how to put together a really good motorcycle event and the road that leads to it and back and everything in between, this is a place to be. John Oakes, part 2. This is part 4, Durango Road. Enjoy, my fellows.
So you guys came to the flat track racing, right?
Oh, yeah, because, Jer and Willie and Ted. Ted had that big yellow 1945 out there.
They were
their
all
dad.
running. Yep.
Yeah, no, everybody was running. And
then you came to the hill climb, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there might have been a stop or two at El Rancho in the middle there, and I know Annette had her, like, girls' ride she was doing, and Stacy.
It was Saturday. Yeah, Saturday afternoon was the Stacy Wiltz Ride to Food, like women's only ride and show.
Right.
Yeah, and then the hill climb, man, that was exciting for me because we had never done it before. And I'd worked with Logan Lackey, Wheelie Pig, helped him with his X Games appearance this year, Winter X Games. Harley Davidson had Snow Hill Climb added as an event in the Winter X Games. Okay. And helped him with his, kind of racing efforts and organized everybody, to put together some marketing promo and just helped, with his racing appearance at X Games. Yeah. And coming out of that, even in advance of that, we wanted to add a hill climb. It's like, what else are we going to add to make it bigger, better, and different this year and something interesting? And we'd started the conversations with the ski resort. And I'd say there was a little hesitation when you say, can I run a motorcycle up your beautiful resort hill? Yeah. And they're used to...
It's Purgatory.
Yeah.
Their name is Purgatory. They got us. Yeah. Sorry.
And they're used to, skiers and snowboarders coming downhill and mountain bikers coming downhill. And thankfully, the operations team there and the management there, like, they were really into it. It took us a little while to kind of work through, the details of how do you rent a mountain so we can run mountain motorcycles up them. Right. And once we got through the, the administrative part of that, it was fantastic to work with. But that day for me, we had rode a group of us, like all the vendors and sponsors and key people that were going to work, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We weren't there on vacation. We were there working. Right. And the year prior, one of our video guys, photographer and videographer, had come to, like, on Thursday afternoon. It's like, I want to go get some riding shots. The sun's going down. The light looks good. Whatever it is. Cool. Like, can a couple of people, jump on the bikes and go for a ride? And I grabbed, just impromptu, like, hey, you and you, let's go run up, 550 and go for a ride so the camera guys can get whatever shots and, photo and video that the camera guys need.
That's a pretty road, 550.
And so it kind of accidentally happened, in 2018, and then this year, everybody's like load in advance was, you have to bring a motorcycle if you're working. Bring your motorcycle, and at 4:00 we're gonna leave. So get your shit set up, and we're going on a ride at 4:00.
How did that go?
And the camera guys are gonna come, and sometimes I'm the best person to organize a ride, and sometimes I'm the worst person to organize a ride, because I think we left, and I'll look at Aaron behind the video. I think we left at 5:15 because something came up with the insurance for the hill climb, and I was pretty much the only capable human being to finish that task, or else it would have ruined, the weekend, I'll say. And so anyway, and thankfully there was a couple of people that were having bike issues and late, so I wasn't, the only one holding it up, but it wasn't like this prompt, we're leaving kickstands up on time or else you're left, thankfully. So
and I think it's hard too, anytime you're organizing. When I see a group of motorcycles go down the road, I have no idea. And I know when we did the Stampede, there was 60 of us, maybe 50 of us finished. We get to the other side, and they go, we're going to do a photo shoot. I think it was Sunday, 10 a.m., meet at the hotel. And we all went, are you crazy? We're not, F that. No, thank you. Well, Michael Lichter's going to be photographing it. Well, at what time? We'll all be there at 9:30.
Yeah.
So that was a real joy, to watch him, to be photographed by him, but have him sit backwards on a motorcycle and tell you, okay, ride by and sit. That was... Man,
I have a good Michael Lichter story. He and I in Sturgis together this year. I had one of the bikes we gave away, a Fat Bob, a Softail Fat Bob. This year was one of the bikes that we gave away with Skyute Casino and Speed Kings. Steve from Speed Kings, customized and set up. Steve from Speed Kings. Do you know Steve?
I don't know. I'm just kidding. The man's one of my dears. He's a great guy. He's right down the street. Sorry.
God, he is right down the road.
Super cool guy named Steve.
Cool guy named Steve from Speed Kings. Yep. He set up, one of the bikes that we gave away, customized it.
Lucky you.
And he and I was dragging the bike around. We showed it off at Born Free, take it to Sturgis, and somehow in the middle of Sturgis, and I was there a couple of days in advance, Michael Lichter doesn't have a bike to ride. And I'm like, well, I have my Dyna and this Softail that we're giving away, and I got nothing to do with it for the next couple of days, and if we're giving it away, we might as well put a couple miles on it, you know. So Michael take this bike. And Michael got to take the Softail. I think he put about 100-something miles on that bike, riding it around Sturgis. And then, we had a few other people for some photo shoots and video shoot content. So we did a good job of putting a couple 100 miles on the bike before we gave it away.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been a fan of his, but man, if he's right, that's great. That's a win-win.
Yeah.
Now, if you get dumped to ride a motorcycle first, it probably wouldn't be the same. Especially if you farted on the seat or something. It probably wouldn't work, But
the paint would peel off.
American Roadrunner brings you a Roadrunner in the Headlight.
New segment of the show. Hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy making of it. Today, the headlight is on. One Mr. Dakota Howard. Now, Dakota is just a guy who started messaging me through the gram, but he had all the right questions, so I knew he was definitely one of us. So, American Roadrunner Dakota Howard likes to ride a Triumph Tiger. It's a 2010. It's a Triumph Tiger 800 model. He's done all the cool customizations and add-ons and stuff to make it his that you'd expect from such a machine. The sweet panniers, skid plates, hand guards, aftermarket exhaust, headlight, and of course my favorite, the saddle rag. Dakota hails these days from Arlington, Washington, the city of Arlington and the state of Washington. He usually rides on-road as well as off-road and still trying to figure it all out. He just kind of picks a place on the map and goes. His passion for riding comes from hanging out with his stepdad, who was a Harley guy back in the day, but kind of a fair-weather rider these days on his Harley. And Dakota thought, well, that's cool, but probably not what he was interested in. So he was sitting in a cafe one day, so the story goes, and apparently a bunch of cool guys cruised by on their on-road, off-road, multi-purpose motorcycles, and he thought, well, that's the way to go. So he ended up picking one up and hasn't been the same since. Started out doing a YouTube channel as well with a buddy, but apparently that didn't work out, so he went to the podcast. This is a dual adventure podcast, dual ADV radio podcast. The other cool thing is he gets to ride with his girlfriend. I guess she rode on the back for a month or so and decided it was time for her to get her own. You can find Miss Anna and all the cool shit she does at Banana Brap. Her Instagram is BANANABRAP. They both aspire to cruise on the Trans-American Trail someday, but getting schedules to match up like the rest of us can be really hard for them. But riding and camping is just what they do. Apparently their longest trip has been 11 days, and he's doing 15 or 20,000 miles a year. He's also conquered and completed the Ride 1K in a Day after hearing about it here on this podcast. The clincher is, Dakota's only been at this for 2.5 years. He's just really embraced it and found it part of what he needs to do to be a whole person. So good for him. Check him out. Instagram handle, DualAV, DualAdv. Dakota Howard at DualAV. Don't forget his podcast, DualAdv Radio. The man's having a lot of fun, doing a lot of cool stuff, and enjoying life on two wheels. Thanks for being a fellow roadrunner, sir. And please know, we will be doing this segment of this show quite a bit more in the future. Maybe one per episode. Who knows? If you're interested in getting in, send me a little DM maybe on the gram or an email. Let's get some good freaking headlights on the fellow roadrunners we got out running on road, enjoying America.
And now back to the road.
It is very exciting from our point of view because I think naturally we spend a lot of time, we'll hit a little camp out with a few friends, but then we'll go to a big camp out. And then we hit a little, let's do lunch today, some afternoon on a Saturday, and then we go to a big event that's all weekend. And I don't think we realize how much effort and energy and work. I know with a bait personally, every year in April we do a big run. We call it the Bare Necessities Run, where we gather up all the underwears and undergarments that the local Salvation Army will use all year long. And everybody brings unopened, unused packages of underwears and whatnot. And it works very well, but it's a lot. And it's kind of the only day-long event we do.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine or begin to imagine the effort and energy that goes into a weekend event, especially one as big and exciting as the Four Corners. You know, you're not here because you're paying me or because because you're giving me a Harley. You know, you're here because I'm a big fan of the Four Corners rally that you put on. So I think you really need to pat yourself on the back. But I suspect for other people out there who might be interested in doing a weekend theme sometime or a day theme sometime, I suspect you have a few tricks up your sleeve you could share with putting on these rallies.
You know, man, I'm sure I do. And really it comes down to like a great team of people, like the staff, you know, from Durango Harley Davidson and the team that works, you know, with us throughout the year, whether it be, you know, the dump truck and Stacy Wilt, and I could go on and name people, Trevor Bird and everybody that works at Durango Harley Davidson, you know, the partnerships that we have with the Skyute Casino and the city of Durango and the county that we rent the fairgrounds from. Like, we're able to, you know, with Four Corners this year, the unique part about organizing that event is most events, and I've been doing events since I was 13 years old, maybe even before that, getting kids to skip school and come party over at my house, and that's the beginning of my career, you know, and whatever those stories are, but with Four Corners this year, we had 9 different locations separated by like 80 miles.
Yeah.
Like from, you know,
the casino.
At the casino, we had the Harley Davidson demo rig, the Indian demo rig, the Speed King stunt team, some vendors, and at the casino, we manage that, you know, parking lot. Then we manage what's going on in the Harley dealership parking lot. Then we close off a block in downtown Durango. We have a parade that rides through downtown. We rent the fairgrounds to have the flat track racing. We've rented the fucking mountain. Thank you, Purgatory.
Yeah.
To have the hill climb.
That was nuts. That was great.
And so there's all these different, you know, kind of bits and pieces. And I think one of the probably problems, like being self-aware with my personality and who I am as like a business operator and an entrepreneur, is I'll go, let's have a hill climb. It'll be easy. Right?
We just need a hill. We're in Colorado. There's a few hills around.
Let's just have a hill climb. It'll be easy, you know. And then, you know, I guess the team of people, right, that come together, and sometimes some of those like crazy cockamamie ideas that I don't fully think through, you know, when we need to have a hill climb, and you know, but you know, that in that particular event, I'll kind of connect the dots back to the other story. That particular event was awesome. And it was so much, and we intentionally, like with that, like wanted it to be, you know, kind of an open, fun, not, there wasn't a big cash purse. There was no cash at all. Like,
right.
You know, the participation awards were cold 805s after you were done racing, you know.
Which is funny because I know half the guys running and my friends don't drink.
So. You know, and but it was just there for fun,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And in that process, like, it was just, you know, so exciting, and I'll connect, like when we were doing that ride, I was telling her, you know, talking earlier about the ride that we did on Thursday. We all ended up riding up to Purgatory and had the guy, Matt, that was working with us. Really, he was the key, the linchpin of the hill climb operation. It would have fallen apart without Matt. Shout out, Matt. Thank you, Matt. And so with that, we watched him do a couple of test runs up the hill, and everybody that was going to work that didn't get to see it got to see it. And then, you know, in that process, I hadn't been back to the hill because it was 50 miles away from everything else.
Right.
On Friday, there was too much going on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we're rolling into the hill climb, and Trevor and I and Dump Truck and Cody Kopp from the local radio station that we work with, we'd all rode in the parade Sunday morning, and then left the parade and made a, you know, beeline up to Purgatory to get there. And I, you know, have no idea how many people are there. I've been on my bike for about 2 hours at that point in the parade, and then from the parade riding up there, so I couldn't text or call my guys and be like, how's it going? Is there any problems? How's practice? Is anything fucked up, or is everything great? I had no idea.
Right.
And we pull up, you know, this like chicaning-esque turn of a road, like up to Purgatory, and there was so many motorcycles in the parking lot. It was a sea of motorcycles, and I'm not exaggerating. Underneath my helmet, it was like a tear of joy, like welled up in my eyes of excitement, like how many bikes there was there.
Yeah.
And then we rip around and park in the pits, and you know, there's a woman there by the name of Stormy who runs the bar there, and she rides, and her husband or boyfriend ride as well.
Oh, that bar was busting nuts.
And she was down at Durango Harley-Davidson on Friday, and she told me, she's like, I took vacation this weekend on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'm like, hold on, you took vacation? What about running your bar on Sunday when we had the hill climb? She goes, I'm drinking a beer, and my staff knows when I go up to the bar and I'm drinking a beer, I'm not working. And I roll up a little bit late, and I walk over, you know, to the bar, and she's behind the bar, left hand serving a beer, right hand serving a beer, left hand, right hand. And I had to get to it. And I look at her and kind of like roll my eyes and, you know, nod my head, and she's like, I'm on vacation, but she just, there were so many people that showed up.
There are so many people,
and it was so much fun.
It was so great.
You know, and there's guys on hardtails and softtails and Dynas, like one of the guys, you know, like running up the hill. And then, you know, I think the moment for me, you know, as soon as I got there, I started asking questions. I'm inquisitive, like, how's it going? Everything good? What problems do we have? You know, like just kind of checking the pulse of everything, you know, with the team that's running the race.
Makes sense.
And I was like, and how'd practice go? Like, did anybody get hurt? Like, it's always the question I don't want to ask, but I need to know the answer to, you know? And did everybody make it up the hill? It's like, no, there was a lot of crashes. And I'm like, okay, that's good. But if they didn't get hurt and there's crashes, that's good entertainment. Did people actually make it all the way up the hill? And when we, you know, had set up the hill, you know, there's this.
It's kind of in three
stages.
Like
3 stages. Yeah. The first stage, there's a bunch of ruts and rocks and really, you know, like some skillful motorcycle riding, getting out of the hill. There's not a lot of incline. Like the hill climb, the first stage of it was pretty flat, a little bit of elevation, but not much. The second stage was like, I'll just call it give it throttle and go. It was a nice grass. It was a good grass patch, you know, not a lot of bumps, no ruts, you know, they're just give it gas and go. And then there's a cutout from like the downhill mountain biking path that I deemed bitch out turnout. Right.
Perfect.
So if you were going to
That's
bitch
where I
out,
would have turned out.
I would. Yeah. I was sitting there looking up that hill, and I'm like, I would not ride a dirt bike that was purpose built for running up this hill. Period. I wouldn't do it.
Right.
But I don't have as big of balls or bike handling skills as some of these guys do and gals, or like everybody that ran up the hill. And Jake Pope, who raced the flat track with us the night before.
I'm a fan. Yeah.
Jake in practice. So the first thing when I asked the team, like, what happened in practice, they're like, Jake Pope took a bell ringer from the top. He got all the way to the top of the hill. We thought he was going to crest it, and then I think I talked to Jake, and he was like, yeah, I could see the crest of the hill like through my handlebars, and then he just took a dig like straight off the back of the bike, fell backwards about 20 feet flying through the air and just knocked himself.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so it was like the first like kind of hooligan, heat race or run up the hill, and first guy didn't get up the hill. Second guy did up the hill, and I might have the race order wrong. And then Jake Pope, man, he's just hammering on his bike. There's dirt flying everywhere, and he's the first guy like in the official run of the race to get up the hill.
Right.
He throws his bike down, and Justin George, our photographer that was at the top of the hill, got this epic photo of him, like the Rocky Balboa, standing at the top of the mountain, looking down at the crowd. And I still, like, even telling the story, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. The crowd yelled and cheered, and the way it like reverberated like through the mountain, like it just was this awesome, like, this is going to be a lot of fun, and we're just getting started. So this year, I think we'll kind of change up a little bit.
2020. It's going to be a new year.
Keep on rocking. And I think with the hill climb, we're going to designate a couple more classes. We're going to have, the chopper class and the hardtail class and the softtail class.
The Bob and all his idiot friends class. Yeah,
okay. You're going to have your own class. Bob's Invitational for sure.
I'm in. That's great.
And anyway, so we're just looking at ways to add, to the event and to make it different and make it about riding motorcycles. There's so many things, man. When you go to certain places, and whether it be Daytona or Vegas, I feel like are the two biggest victims, right? Where you ride there and then you park your bike and then people just party and hang out, and it's not about riding motorcycles. And with Four Corners,
that's weird.
Anybody listening, if you have never been to Southwest Colorado, it is the most amazing place in the United States of America to ride. And you have from the mountains to elevation to the plains to Pagosa to Mesa Verde. There's like thousands of year old cave dwellings chipped into the side of the mountain. And then there's just beautiful downtown Durango that has amazing food and breweries and
if you're coming from the Midwest, you got Wolf Creek's Pass, which is always exciting.
And then if you're coming from the West Coast, you can go up through Zion and Bryce Canyon. Like, you might as well ride a motorcycle on Mars, right? Through Zion.
That was my coffee maker, by the way. It seems like every effing podcast, a damn coffee maker goes off to remind me it's been a few hours.
I'm glad it's not a bomb, and I'm glad it wasn't my cell phone, so we're good.
That's just like the 10th podcast where the damn coffee maker goes off. Cracks me up. Anyway. It is, and I think that's going to be the win-win about it, is that it's very well located, so wherever you are in the country, you're going to have the opportunity to enjoy a really pretty ride, and it always works out where the weather's real nice,
Riding along a river in Colorado, there's nothing wrong with that. That's it, end of story. And then to just all the little, like, short destinations. When you ride 750 miles to get there, like you did in one sit, and then you want to hang out with your friends for a few days, you can ride over what we call I don't know who gets credit for calling it like the Oaks Soaks run. Like we last name Oaks. There's
that's cool.
Pagosa Springs. There's a place I got to remember the name of it. The like Pagosa Resort or whatever. And it's a hot spring resort. But it's not like, I'll call it like the hippie hole hot springs where it's like a dirt trail off the side of the road. This place is like a legitimate resort.
Pagosa Springs.
It sits on the edge of the river. Yeah. And there's like I think it's 27 different geothermal heated hot springs.
A lot. Yeah.
And they range anywhere from like 88 degrees to like 100 and fuck. You can't even get in it, like
right.
And so the place, I discovered this place, a buddy of mine, Lou, he and I were riding there like through Durango and out towards Pagosa. Just we had no idea where we were and where we were going. We were just exploring, ripping around, and there's these big, black, dark, ominous clouds. And I've ridden through enough rain in my life and thunderstorms, and I was just like, yeah, you know, like we're out on this like Sunday fun day, whatever it is, ripping around. You know, I don't really feel like riding through the rain, and I don't have to go anywhere. Yeah. Let's pull over and check out this little town. Like, what is Pagosa all about?
Oh,
and what is it? And awesome. It says Springs.
Springs, yeah.
And I just like most people should. I ride with board shorts on my bike, so when I need to go, you know, dump my junk.
So you hadn't heard the MC McCall song. What the heck? Did anybody else hear it? What did I just say? MC McCall. Who the hell? I meant to say C.W. McCall. I'm so freaking embarrassed. C.W. McCall, musician, 1970s. Maybe the early 80s as well. He did that most popular tune, Convoy, as well as the song I'm talking about here in this part of the interview, Wolf Creek Pass. I should be ashamed of myself. Someone should take my damn card. I don't know what the hell my problem is. C.W. McCall, Wolf Creek Pass. Check it out sometime. It's a true story, and I know that because fellow stampeder, Cy Henry, who now resides in Hawaii, was a kid when it happened. Chickens all over the side of the road.
And now, back to our regularly scheduled road.
You know about Pagosa Springs.
No,
chickens scattling over the hill. You know it now, though.
I need to.
Oh,
I need to now. No, I don't know it now. I just learned something right there.
Well, it's a real story, so yeah, we'll have to find it.
We roll through.
MC McCall.
We go sit at the Pagosa Hot Springs.
And it starts, you're in heaven.
And it starts pouring down rain, and we sat there for 5 hours. It was the best rainstorm I'd ever ridden in my entire life. We sit there, let the bikes get wet. We're sitting in the hot springs. We're going around from 111 to 105 to 100 to 88 to sitting there and just enjoying the rain. And then it was early enough in the day on that day that we were riding that the sun broke and the blue skies came back out. And I'm like, you ready to keep riding? Yep. and we got back on the road and just kept putting around. But at that moment, I like discovered what Pagosa Hot Springs was,
right,
you know, like the best way. Like, and then
the moral of the story is always bring your swim trunks.
Always bring your. I always bring your swim trunks. Yeah. You never know when you're going to need to go jump in a river, do a push up in a stream, or go sit in a hot spring somewhere. And,
yeah, that's pretty good.
But and that's the part, like with that area, Four Corners, is you can ride 50 miles over to Pagosa from Durango and go sit in hot springs. You can go out to the casino. You can go up to the mountains. You can go to Mesa Verde. You can go here. There's all these really entries. You can go to the Four Corners Monument, like the only place in the United States you can be in 4 states at the same time. And you know, there's all these just interesting, you know, kind of day trip rides, you know, and if you want to do
reservation and
all kinds of stuff. So it's great riding.
Creek Pass, Trinidad. There's a lot of history there too.
Yeah.
A lot of history in that part of the country.
Mr. Marshall, will you please tell us a story?
Story time, story time. It looks like Miss Nicole talked me into it. This week, the question comes in from one Mr. Nick Huff. You may know him better as Knives Made by Nick. He asked me, Bob, what is your favorite road you've ridden on more than once? Wow. So this one took a lot of effort. And I got to tell you, it goes back last week, Cornville. There I am, hanging out in Cornville the way I do. And I love that part of the country. It's just amazing and beautiful. And I haven't been there when it's too cold, so I really don't know. But definitely one of my favorite places to ride to. Just a nice 7 or 8 hour ride from here. But I brought the long way home, because why not? It was Sunday afternoon. So the answer was, from Cottonwood, Cornville there, I went up to Jerome and brought the 89 down, 89A to the 89. And I got to tell you, I forget. I forget all the time until I'm on that road, and I just remember you go through mountains, then you go through a valley. Then you go through mountains, then you go through a valley. So the answer may be, out of everywhere I've been, interstates, states, I'd have to do some counting, but it's got to be 30-something, maybe 40-something states I've gotten to ride through. The 89A, Arizona, northern Arizona down to central there, western. And, boy, I took the long way, the very, very long way. But, boy, totally worth it. 89A, Arizona. Check it out if you ever get a chance. Mr. Nick Huff, knives made by Nick on the gram. I got to tell you, this guy does some really good work, too, so check him out when you get a chance. Thanks for the question, Nick. And now,
back to our regularly scheduled road.
it all had to start somewhere for you.
Yeah.
The whole two-wheeled addiction, sickness, that you have like the rest of us.
You know, that's a good question.
Yeah,
right?
let's get to the meat and potatoes.
My motorcycle history, right? I was born in Charleston, South Carolina on the Navy base.
Right.
And my parents were super young when they had kids. It blows my mind thinking about it. My mom and dad, when they had my older brother, were 17. When they had me, they were 21 years old. My dad's in the Navy on a nuclear missile sub.
Wow.
And he went out, and I should be able to tell this story, but he went out and bought, spent a couple of grand and bought a brand new, like anybody, when you're in the Navy and you get your signing bonus and your money and everything and you got 2 kids, the thing that you should do is go buy a brand new motorcycle. My dad did
That's
that.
Right.
Like, he went and got a brand new motorcycle. He spent a couple of grand on an old Yamaha, whatever it was. And I think I had to be 4 or 5 years old. And my dad set me on the back of his bike and I went for a ride. I'm sure my mom loved it, but she was old enough, probably not to know any better, young enough not to know any better, right? And like my dad put me on the back of his bike and went for a ride, and I was 4 or 5 years old. And then, so my dad had a bike and rode, when I was younger. And then I think that was my first motorcycle experience, right? Having my dad put me on the back of a bike and go putting around the neighborhood on the back of my dad's bike.
Gateway drug.
Yeah, and then I grew up. We moved. We were in the Navy. I was born in Charleston. Went to, Maine for a bit, and then settled in St. Louis. My parents were from St. Louis, so we moved to St. Louis, and that's where I say I'm from. That's my hometown. I grew up in St. Louis. I was born in Charleston, but moved there when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and then.
Oh, I get it. Missouri's a pretty land. Although, did you say Missouri?
Missouri. It depends on which side of the state. Missouri,
Missouri. My mom's from Independence, so it's Missouri. Yeah. Independence, Missouri.
Missouri, yeah. From the southern part, it's Missouri. Yeah. From we're from just outside of St. Louis, is where I grew up. So
still a jumping off point back in the day, but yeah.
And I grew up there, and I had friends that rode bikes, but I really grew up skateboarding was the foundation of my childhood. So skateboarding, hardcore punk rock music. My childhood best friend and I, one summer, he grew up playing guitar and singing in the church band or whatever it was. And one summer, I think we were 11 or 12 years old. I went. Say, I'm going to be the drummer, right? And I'm inspired by Green Day, and I'm going to go be the drummer. And went to a local pawn shop and bought a drum kit, and that summer we started a garage band in my garage, right next to my dad's bike, me learning how to play the drums. And then quickly my friend Dan, just immediately became 1,000 times better than I was at drums, because he had some music background and experience with guitar and singing and everything, and he just usurped my non-musical talent. And by the end of the summer, the garage band had moved to his basement, and it was him playing the drums, all the instruments. And then literally at the end of the summer, I said, you know what, you be the musician, I'll do the business of the band. And we're 11 years old, and that's really the story of my life at that point. Really, jumped into music and working with him and the different bands that he was in, and promoting shows. When I was 15 years old in high school, couldn't drive, convinced a friend of mine to skip school, and went and sold sponsorship to the local recorded music shop, the local music instrument shop, the local aftermarket parts and performance car shop, and the local skate shop that we all bought our skate decks and worked, Soka skate. And sold So the school skipping truant underage minor, right, went out and
Collected
sold
a few
sponsorship.
dollars,
Went
yeah.
and collected a couple $100. I went, deposited that money into the bank account, and then let the checks clear. Because this is, and then went to school the next day. And then after the checks cleared the next day, I skipped school again and went down to the local radio station and bought radio ads for the concert that my childhood best friend's band was playing, and bought ads. And I just did that. And it's really, to this day, whether it's Four Corners Motorcycle Rally or whatever else it's doing, it's the same thing that I do today. Now it's just more about motorcycles. And if it's not, if it's not loud, fast, and fun, like, I and my company aren't involved.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And so, in that process, like talking more about bikes, when I moved to California, I was 21 years old when I moved to California. And at that point, I think it was 22, 23 years old. I went to buy a bike. I had cash in my pocket, and I'm an active runner, and I ran. I was going to buy a Honda Shadow, of all things. My dad.
That would have been a good idea. I got a few. I love them.
My dad talked me into it. He was like, figure out what bike I got. I want to go get a Honda Shadow. I ran to the local, like 6 mile run, and I ran to the dealership to buy a bike, and I was going to run home. Or ride it home. I ran there, and I was going to ride it home.
Yeah.
And I got to the dealership, and there's a reason why I feel like this dealership's out of business now, right? I literally had the sweaty money, cash in my pocket to go buy a bike, my first ever motorcycle. And I walked in, and the sales guy at the dealership was such a dickhead that I'm like, I'm not going to let this guy get the commission or the gratitude of selling me my first motorcycle. He was so rude to me when I walked in, and I'm like, I got to fucking run home. And
the worst part,
and what I did, and I didn't run home. I ran to a friend of mine, John and Elaney, and ran to their house, and his wife gave me a ride home. And then I ended up getting a chopper, like an old, we bought a different bike, and then that just started the addiction, right?
Yeah.
And
that was good. You didn't let that situation frustrate.
Yeah.
Your
But I didn't. It tainted that dealership, and it tainted the brand. I was like, I'm not buying that bike, and I ended up getting a different bike. So
good on you. You do so much exciting stuff. I wouldn't even.
We could keep telling stories for
yeah,
hours.
well, I think that's a given. Good for us.
Yeah. I'll ask. I'm gonna ask you a question to close.
Sure.
Where's your favorite place? If there's a ride or a story of where you've ridden your motorcycle, can you put
that's
one?
Hilarious.
Can you put one on a pedestal?
Well, it's always, in my opinion, it's always what you make it.
Yeah.
And so if you show up with a bad attitude, you're going to have a bad time. If you show up mad at your old lady, you're going to be mad at your old lady the whole weekend, So I enjoy the road more than the destination, no matter what. That's just how it's going to be. I have shown up to places, and, you show up to flat track race, and they're jerks. The people who are working the front gate, or you show up to pay for something, and it's hard. If you're not careful, one apple will spoil the bunch. Or the new thing at events is like, well, you can drink alcohol here, but not here. Or you can smoke here and not listen, I don't know what all these rules are about, but I'm an American, so I'm going to make this work. And if this doesn't work for you, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because honestly, when it comes to all those set rules where they want to control the crowd to do what they want to do, well, that sounds a lot like being locked up. Yeah. I work in a jail sometimes downtown. I take care of a bunch of county buildings downtown. So I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in being told what I can do, what I can't do, where I can't, I don't really drink. So, and we all know that there are certain rules and regulations that we have to do with law. So when I get somewhere and no one's frisking me, no one's telling me to take off my bait vest, and no one's telling me, I can't have a pocket knife, or I can't smoke here and I can't smoke there, then that's it. It's very American, and I'm in love. So congratulations. The Durango Four Corners Rally in Durango. At no point did I have any of those issues.
Perfect. We try to keep it that way.
I think that's what it's all about. And so, yeah, I've been to a lot of events, and I'm not going to mention them. Maybe it was just whoever I was dealing. Who knows? But I really enjoy the road. So a nice 750-mile scoot compared to, the 1,000 mile or 1,500 mile I've done in a day, whatever crazy crap I've done. And I know the guys who live in Durango, they hop down for Born Free because it's only 750 miles and they're used to doing the same numbers, So I think that's the exciting part. So I think you really got to pat yourselves on the back on not having all the extra security, all the extra BS, all the extra rules and regulations. But that's me. I like open themes, and
we like to try to keep it fun, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So when you got too much, it's not fun, and I think that's the benefit of the road too. We know all the rules and regulations, but on a motorcycle, you're a little special. You get to split a few lanes and not have to wait in traffic.
That's the hard part, coming from California and then rolling through other states where you're pent up lane spinning or splitting aggression. Like, I can't do this here, but every once in a while you just have to anyway. And
I think if more people rode around on old cop bikes like I do, it kind of they don't question you so much. That's for sure. That's good stuff. John, thanks for asking. No, it was good fun. It was good to have you.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Let's go to the corner. It's time to talk tech. Let's go to the corner. It's time to talk tech.
Yep, new segment of the show, Talking Tech Corner. In this segment, we're going to be figuring out a few of life's problems, one question, one answer at a time. It seems for most of us, the things that make us uncomfortable are the things we tend to avoid. So what if we could take that which makes us uncomfortable and make it comfortable? As I wrote about it in my book, we did not come home from the hospital on scoots. Sometimes the things and forces that drag on us while riding can really wear us down if we let them. For myself, I've gotten to spend a lot of time and effort getting over my fears of riding. Wind, road, the feeling of the machine, and everything around me bouncing and undulating and getting crazy was a bit uncomfortable when I first started seriously riding, and that was probably only 15 years ago for myself. But these days, I prefer to ride, especially over driving or being cooped up in a car or truck. That just sounds miserable to me. I'd just much rather be on a scoot. On my ride to Durango, on this ride to the Four Corners Motorcycle Rally, I got to ride through or next to a really big storm. And I knew I was next to it because I looked up and I looked around and I looked in front of me, and I was right around Flagstaff where I get to make a left, and I could see from the direction that the wind was going and everything that the storm was heading east, and I was getting ready to head north. So even if I rode through it just a little bit, I assumed I'd be okay because the trees, the bushes, everything around me told me the wind was at my back and I was getting ready to make a left and go north. So I got a little wet, and I was okay with that. Maybe 10, 15 minutes it pounded on me. But, then I dried, and it was a little chilly, but it wasn't unbearable at all. And my mama made me waterproof, and everything worked out really good because I thought it would, and I had a bit of a plan. Maybe experience taught me that, or maybe I just headed into it understanding that I had a change of clothes. So if I had to pull over to a gas station somewhere and change my clothes, dry myself out, that'd be okay too. The one good thing about a motorcycle is that there's always wind around to dry your clothes out. My point to mentioning this is don't be afraid to look up and see what's in front of you, and be okay with whatever plan you come up with. And if that plan includes getting a little wet on the road that you choose, I think that's okay. Just a big thanks for enjoying this long show. Yes, this was a longer 4-part show compared to our usual programming, but things really are getting better, and they are moving forward in this show. I'd like to send a big thanks out, of course, to John Oakes for all that he does for our riding community and for taking the time to sit down with me and share a few good stories. That was quite a pleasant treat and added just that much to this show, Durango Road. Also, just a big thanks out to the talents of Nicole Valencia for lending us her voice on this show. Yes, you have heard her before on the radio and continue to hear her a lot on the radio, as well as audiobooks and a bunch of other cool stuff. She's quite the voice talent, and lucky us to have her along for the ride. So things are moving forward. The road in the show and all it's about is getting much more exciting. And in all of that excitement, before I forget, if you're listening to this show, it's most likely on a podcast, which means you're probably into podcasts. So let's talk about podcasting for a minute. Podcasts are awesome. They're on demand. They're free. They're digital. You can look them up anytime you want and listen to them as much as you want, and then go back and listen to previous episodes. I know all this because I am a huge fan of podcasts. Let me tell you about one of my favorite ones. No, I'm not collecting money from this person. I'm about to tell you about their freaking awesome show called Legends of the Old West. This is by Chris Wimmer, and I befriended Chris and his sister, who put on Legends of the Old West podcast, simply because I was a fan. So I started reaching out to him, asking questions, and this was even before I started hosting this podcast. If you're into super cool things, Americana stories, Legends of the Old West podcast, check it out. It's put out by Black Barrel Media. He's also done short histories. He'll usually do a handful of podcasts regarding a certain subject matter. So you got several hours of great history where Chris talks it all out and goes through all of it. And it's not about talking it out. It's about story sharing. He's just sharing a good story. Legends of the Old West podcast. Don't forget to check that out. As far as what we're doing here at American Roadrunner, I've been very excited. There's been some great articles written on me lately. I've gotten to do some great public speaking engagements, most of them local here in Southern California, but I'm having a good time with it. Some of it is regarding, the book. Some of it's regarding different poetry that I've gotten to write in the past and share with the community to keep it G-rated if children are around. But above all, life is good, and story sharing is always extremely exciting for a man like me. Until next time, my fellows, keep the rubber side down and enjoy your road.
American Roadrunner. American Roadrunner. American Roadrunner. American Roadrunner. All I want is a machine between my legs and an open highway. Music for the American Roadrunner podcast is brought to you by Meek. The American Roadrunner podcast is an ARR production. Keep up with Bob Marshall and his adventures and stories from the road at AmericanRoadrunnerthebook.com, American Roadrunner on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube. We'll see you on the road.